Thanksgiving and welcome to HyzerMedia's tournament coverage of the Birdie Disc Golf Supply Company presents the Turducken from Bellevue State Park in Wilmington, Delaware. Thank you all for joining us, and thank you to our Patreon family for supporting us. I'm Dave Oster, here to bring you the final round of this tournament. Exciting golf. We have the tournament director, Tim Reyes, with the hot down first round, 5 down, tying Brian O'Neill, who we've seen on coverage before, also at the hot round. Local Tyler Hogan with the 4 down, just 1 back. And the young gun Wyatt Mahoney also with the 4 down. So real tight up at the top. These guys are going to be battling each other, and the wind conditions here on this cold weekend. Starting off on hole 1, par 3, 365 feet. Pretty much just got to throw straight. Wind obviously going to be trying to throw these discs off the fairway. Thick rough on both sides. A little bit less thick because of the time of year, but still don't want to be on either side. Tim gets caught up a little bit on the right side, but drops down in the fairway. Should have a fairly easy up and down. Brian O'Neill going with a little bit of a hyzer flip. Doesn't quite flip enough, but gets a favorable tree kick back out into the fairway. Tyler Hogan. Ooh, wind dropped that, but gets a great skip off the ground. Double skip and another favorable tree kick. Might be a little pinched off, but should be able to get something around those trees. And Wyatt Mahoney, the second lefty on our card. Also trying to get with that hyzer flip. Does flip just enough and just past the short basket, playing to the long and the best drive of the group. So we are playing to the red baskets today, all long tees and long baskets. Tim gets caught up in that one tree that needed to avoid. He'll have a long putt to save that par. Tyler was just far enough out that he had a pretty easy up and down. Leaves it a little short and left, but inside the circle approach. Brian maybe close enough to give it a little bit of a bid. Brings a little wide, but tree catches and knocks it down in a good spot. And Wyatt definitely giving it a run. Wind looked like it blew it out of the initial path he putted it on. Tim almost saving that par just off the rim. Very high sky putt. And good par save for Tyler. Hole 1 was coming in as the 5th hardest hole, playing about a quarter stroke over par. And that pretty much reflects in what it looks like the card score is going to be. So right away with the bogey, Tim drops down, and Brian now has the 1-stroke lead. But also real close at the top as we move over to hole 2. Par 3, 280 feet. Either go straight through this main gap, or our lefty and righty players can go pure hyzer to either side of either of those trees. Thick rough on the left side can slow your disc up if you get caught in that, but otherwise a fairly simple hole, other than the wind not letting you do what you expect the disc to be doing. Brian, little high, might have got a little bit of a kick, but otherwise a pretty good throw. He'll have an inside 20-25 foot putt for his birdie. Tyler taking it lower, hoping for the skip. And gets a decent amount of ground play. He might be circle's edge. Not a bad spot to be. Wyatt looks like he's lining up the turnover instead of the pure hyzer play. And hits the gap, but hits a little early. May be obstructed by those trees over on the right side of the fairway. And Tim deciding to go right up the middle. Big skip, some ground play, best drive of the group. And you can just hear that wind howling and affecting Wyatt's putt almost bringing it in. Might have been more of a layup, but almost giving it a bid with the way the wind lifted it. Tyler also with a good bid, just kind of got shoved down to the last second. Just right side chains for Brian. And Tim with the best shot for birdie. And nails it. Getting that stroke back that he lost in the first hole right away. And we are back to exactly where we started this round. Hole 2 playing as the same difficulty as hole 1. A lot of the holes on this course came out at exactly quarter stroke over par. So, and that wind is howling. We do start to get into a little bit more coverage section of the course as we go along. After this hole, this one's still right on the same field, par 3, 325 feet, straight through the main gap, or wider left could be a better option for the lefties, or backhand turnovers for the righties. Tim looks like he is lining up the lefty hyzer. Again, long grass on the left you want to stay out of. And Tim looks like he released a little bit later, and he does end up in that long grass. So, slows his disc down, but not long enough to really affect his next shot. But didn't get the skip or ground play that maybe he was expecting. And the wind just throwing these discs around. Brian either hoping to get a little bit more turn or a little more hyzer on that, but catches the right side tree. Falls down right there. Tyler needs that to flip and just doesn't enough. Catches and kicks left. This hole is short enough that once you get to those trees, it should be a pretty easy up and down. But obviously it's just going to be a long birdie attempt, especially in this wind. Wyatt decided to go with the big hyzer around the tree and just short of the tree next to the basket, and he is on the circle. Brian with the big straddle out. Got to be pretty flexible to do that, but good upshot. Way to save the par. And Tyler taking it a bit wide, but comes back just behind the basket. Should have an easy putt for his par. Tim maneuvering around this last tree. Nice turnover. And puts it right under the basket. Exactly what he was trying to do. And Wyatt with an actual birdie look. And left side chains catches that lefty hyzer angle coming in. And we now have a three-way tie for the lead. And that putt was a little bit further than it even looked from the first angle we saw. So good putt for Tyler to save his par. As Brian and Tim will tap in their pars as well. This was another hole coming in at the same stroke for the field. So a lot of these holes out in the open playing the same. This one a little bit different. Hole 4, par 3, 365 feet. Also along that field, but the basket is tucked into the woods on the right side. Kind of a backstop of these wood logs if you can get all the way there. So you can kind of play a little bit more aggressive. Wyatt taking it very wide and getting a good skip. Trying to avoid getting caught up in any of the limbs on the right side, but could have gone maybe a bit tighter to try to get all the way into that green. Definitely the lefty backhand favorable hole. Tim going a little bit tighter, maybe a little bit less stable. Gets a skip and kind of lands in the small ditch near the green. He'll have maybe a 40-footer. Looking for his second birdie of the round. Brian going with the backhand turnover. And gets a decent amount of ground play, but isn't quite the right shot shape to keep flexing towards the basket. Maybe a bit more stable would have been nice, but trying to play the wind, obviously. Tyler going with the roller. This needs to turn over. It's starting to kind of gets caught up. So he'll be maybe pin high, but pretty far left. Maybe 90, 100 feet. That's a good upshot for his par save. Brian has a window through the woods right side, and pretty good bid. Rolls right up against those logs. Wyatt a little bit left side and sneaks through a little gap, so he'll have a little bit of a comebacker. And Tim with the best look from in the ditch. Just a little bit low. Probably the tailwind coming off of the field having a bit of an effect on that. Ooh, and Wyatt sneaking one over the rim to save his par. Brian able to stay pretty close after that birdie bid, meaning the other two players on our card should be just tapping in their pars. So we will move over to our first par 4. Hole 5 is 570 feet. No out of bounds to speak of, but avoiding that main tree and the long grass on the right side will leave you a decently easy second shot to try to get close to the long red basket that we're playing to. But you see this is a very open hole, so the wind blowing maybe more so in this hole than most. Wyatt going with the turnover around that tree in the center, winds up in the long grass on the left side. Tim needs to sneak just past this tree, and he does so very well, just on the edge of the long grass on the right side. He should have a pretty easy up and down to get his birdie. Brian going with big hyzer. Looks like, oh, that turned way over. Players were throwing into a headwind here. He put quite a bit of hyzer on that release, but wasn't able to have it come back in the fairway, so he's going to be way far to the right side. Tyler with a similar line, probably a more stable disc after seeing what happened to Brian's, and he'll be over near where Wyatt ended up. And that was Brian just pitching back out to the main fairway. Tyler with big high wide hyzer, wind blowing it in the last minute, but sticks fairly well on the green, and he'll have a birdie attempt. Tim's disc also getting blown down by the wind, hoping that was going to flex a little bit outside of the basket line and coming back in, but not able to have it do that. He's still will also have a birdie look. And Wyatt leaving a little short. So he'll have a long attempt, but he'll be on the dance floor, as they say. And Brian's third shot, also a little short, more than he would have wanted to for these windy conditions, but he'll have a putt. And Wyatt maybe giving it a half bid, hoping the wind keeps it up, but not enough to keep it in. And great putt for Brian to save that par. 35, maybe 40 footer, catching right side chains. And another sky putt right into the chains for Tim Reyes. Out of the frame so high, and it comes back in. Take a look at it again. Just dropping straight down. That's a way to get a birdie for your tournament director. And Tyler with the more traditional style putt, but same score on the card. regardless. Hole 5 was the easiest hole on the day, so 3 birdies coming in on this card. Not surprising as we move over to hole 6, one of the more difficult holes on the course. Par 3, 300 feet, tight, pretty much a tunnel shot all the way through. Then once you get up near the green, you have to get around or over these mounds to try to get a clean look at the basket. Does favor the lefty backhand a little bit, but it's straight enough that you can get a look regardless of what type throw you have. There's also a bit of a right side backdoor gap if you prefer that shape. Ooh. Tyler going with a big flex forehand. Catching a limb. Ooh, and getting skinny little tree kiss. And quite a bit of distance for Wyatt. But obviously going to be obstructed on that right side rough. So, and Brian also hitting a tree. So these tight tunnel in the wind playing very difficult for these players. Everybody catching a tree in one way or another. Tim narrowly missing, hitting trees again and skipping up to the green. Nice approach shot. Brian with looks like a difficult line he's trying to hit. Gets out and just up to those mounds. There's kind of a little gap between them. He might have a putt to go between those two. And Tyler just skips past him, and he will also have a putt to save his par. And Wyatt catching something on the way out, but over the mound, and he'll have the easiest look to save his par. Good putt for Tim to save his par as well as Tyler. Brian actually up on the mound a little bit, putting down and just right side. Good save for Wyatt after being out of position, as well as everybody else. So one bogey on the card as we move over to hole 7. Another par 4, 385 feet. Short, but it's a uphill and low ceiling, so you really can't give it the height you'd want to throw the full distance. And a slight bend from left to right as you get about halfway down the fairway. Tim with a good first shot, just getting about to that corner. All the distance you really need if you're just looking for a birdie. Being so close, I wouldn't guess that any of these players are really trying to go for the eagle here, but it's certainly reachable if need be. Other than that, it should be a pretty easy birdie in normal conditions. So far, it doesn't look like the wind's affecting him too much. This is a bit wider of a fairway, more room to maneuver as long as you get your height correct, which it looks like everybody's done so far. A little bit of a skip from left to right for Wyatt, but he's actually up into circle 2. He could have a long look for his eagle if he's looking to do so. Brian, ooh, 2 turned over, catches the tree early, goes left side, and now has this gap. Try to get up and down, can still save the birdie. Ooh, catches a high limb, but does skip past that tree, so he'll still have a look. Tim with a little bit too much air on it, but pretty close still. And Tyler with a perfect approach will have a easy tap in for his birdie. And Wyatt with the long eagle attempt. Oh, off the cage. Almost gaining a stroke on the card even if they tap in their birdies. Brian, left side. Maybe expecting the wind to keep that a bit straighter. I think he was putting into a headwind. And good putt to save the par. And good birdie. So Tyler and Wyatt will be tapping into their birdies. So 3 for the card. This hole was playing a half a stroke under par for the field. And Wyatt just long enough arms to get that as a drop in. And it is getting tighter at the top. As we move over to hole 8, par 3, 280 feet. Branches all along the right side, so lefty backhand or righty turnover or forehand was shot shape to avoid the branches. And low ceiling as you get to the green. So keeping it low is key here. Swinging it wide if you got the room. And that looks pretty good for Tim. Should be another birdie. Forehand flex from Tyler. Coming, oh, almost hitting the basket, skipping a little far. And there it is, still within circle, maybe circle's edge. And this looks like it's drifting a little right. Not the worst. Oh, and catches the tree. Probably a good tree. That was going to be heading even further away from the basket. Maybe obstructed if it landed behind those limbs, but if he's far enough away from the tree, he should have a edge of circle look. Brian with the turnover. Oh, and almost ringing it up. You see the graphic down below our Patreon if you are interested in supporting HyzerMedia. We post highlights of every tournament before the rounds come out and a bunch of other benefits. And speaking of highlights, great putt for Wyatt. Carding the birdie. If you're interested in supporting us, you can go over to patreon.com/HyzerMedia. And Brian with the ace run and still staying close. Best of both worlds. Tapping in his birdie as we move over to the last hole in this front 9. Par 3, 250 feet. A couple trees on the left, meaning the lefties will have a little bit of trouble with the backhand. And one tree right side of the pin near the green to avoid as you get down there. So Tim leaving that a little short. You see Wyatt going with that turnover, try to avoid the limbs on the left side, and another ace run. The wind dropped that at the last second, otherwise that was right on line. And again, stayed very close, so great shot for Wyatt. Big hyzer for the righties. Makes sense, just needs to avoid the tree. Oh, and barely does. Actually lands behind the tree and rolls even closer to the basket. Tyler looking to replicate that shot. A little bit higher. Again, needs to avoid that tree. And actually fades out a little bit before the tree, so he'll have a longer look than Brian, but similar direction. Tim giving it a bid. Oh, just a little bit short. But he'll be right under there for his par. Little left side for Tyler. And good putt for Brian. 2 in a row, and he is right back up. Tied for 3rd place. And Wyatt is now tied for first place. Oh. Catches the rim there. So that's going to be an unfortunate bogey for Tyler, bringing him down to 5. And as Tim taps in his par, we are done with this first round. A couple pretty good putts and some strange wind play from these players, but it is a tight race at the top. Be sure to check out the back 9 coming right up. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next hole.